I'm Heidi Otway, your host for this conversation on cannabis virtual forum, brought to you by the Medical Marijuana Education and Research Initiative at Florida A&M University. In this conversation, we're talking about the increase in youth, teens, and young adults vaping marijuana and the concerns around this trend. So let's talk and learn about this subject with our guests. Dr. Shamira Roberson is a highly skilled public health administrator who has served as deputy secretary at the Florida Department of Health. She now leads a consulting practice focused on solving public health issues in Florida and across the U.S. Dr. Roberson, it's good to have you back on the forum. Please tell our guests more about yourself.
Good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be back again to discuss, contemporary concerns with cannabis. And this time we're talking about teens, vaping, and some problems that we're seeing in the community. We're going to discuss things about high school, middle school. I've had a long career, worked a lot in rural areas related to public health, and I'm happy to be here to discuss this very important topic.
Thank you. Our next guest is Ladarius Gamage, who spent several years working as the statewide youth advocacy coordinator for the Students Working Against Tobacco program, also known as SWAT. There, he led award-winning initiatives to help decrease tobacco use, vaping, and inhaled nicotine use among Florida's youth. Ladarius, we're glad to have you on this conversation. Tell us more about yourself.
Thank you so much, Heidi. So I'm a doctoral student at Florida A&M University. I'm currently pursuing my doctorate in public health out of the Institute of Public Health at FAMU. My dissertation topic is youth empowerment. It's been a great passion of mine working with young people and young adults, trying to decrease inhaled nicotine. Now I'm working on a couple of different projects, such as working against opioid uses and battling the misuse of that in different areas.
Thank you. We're so glad to have you as a guest on the show today. To everyone joining us on this live program, please share, post, and tag a friend on Facebook to have them join this live conversation. If you're on YouTube, share the link so others can join us as well. During the forum, we want you to send us your questions in the comment box, and we'll do our best to have our guests answer them. We also want you to tell us what you think about this forum by completing the survey posted in the comments box on YouTube and Facebook after the live program. Your name will be entered into a drawing on December 5th, 2024 to win a $100 gift card provided by one of Mary's partners. Now, let's start this conversation on cannabis. Ladarius, I'm going to start with you. Can you kind of just set the foundation for this conversation by telling our listeners and viewers what is vaping?
Certainly. So vaping is a new term that people are using, but it's relatively the same action as using an e-cigarette or a different device where you have to press a button on these new electronic devices. And what they do is they light up a heating coil within and allows the mixture, the e-liquid, the e-juice, or the e-cannabis juice to become a mist, and then the person begins to inhale them.
So who are the primary users of these vaping tools? And I'll just have to say, I see it all the time. I see it everywhere.
So the primary users, and let's keep this in mind, this is a product for a vast majority of different Americans. So the primary users that studies are beginning to identify are young adults and teenagers, because there's so many different flavors, there's so many different gadgetries and different looks that appeal to them. And now we are in a time where this generation of young people have more currency, have more money than we had back in my day or your day. So now they're able to get their hands on these items pretty quickly.
Yeah. So Dr. Roberson, based on your experience in public health, what are you seeing? What are some of the trends that you're seeing when it comes to these young adults and young youth using these vaping tools?
So I think it's important for people to know that when conducting a survey, the Florida Youth Substance Abuse Survey, it was reported, and this was actually reported by students, that 5.5% of middle school and high school students in Florida reported vaping marijuana. I think that's astounding. That's a lot. And of this, 64% of people who currently vape marijuana, they also vape nicotine. So that is a lot amongst that 5.5%. And what I'm seeing is that, you know, it is a emerging public health concern because a lot of parents, the community, stakeholders, policymakers, they don't truly understand what's happening because they don't truly understand how to measure it, what to look for. And a lot of these students, because it's a lot of times odorless, people don't, you know, they're not able to catch it. They don't know that their children are doing it. They're concealing these vaping products, but we don't understand from a public health standpoint the long-term effects of vaping. So they can have future problems with heart health, brain health, lung health. So it is important that we work to prevent, or even if a teen has started to vape, that we provide intervention strategies so that they can stop this. So those are some things that we're seeing now, and it's becoming more and more prevalent in communities.
I want to know why. Why, I mean, why are we seeing more teens and young adults vaping not only, you know, the nicotine products, but cannabis?
A lot of studies have shown that, you know, nicotine, the exposure to it is related to nicotine exposure as well. There's been some concerted efforts and a lot of public health interventions to prevent teens from vaping nicotine, a lot of awareness, a lot of public health campaigns, et cetera. With vaping as an emerging public health topic for marijuana, there is not a lot of programs, you know, other than Mary and a few others that have began to focus on, you know, bringing light to this, that youth, that they're in fact vaping. So there's not a lot of public health and other programs that are focused on this issue. I think that's why you see an increase in this. And then people don't understand the effects. So like with smoking, they understand that you can develop lung cancer. You have many years of people doing that. So you know the things that can happen. But with vaping, this is such a new thing. People don't understand the long-term things that can happen from it based on the cognitive development of youth. They don't understand and can't rationalize these things can have long-term effects on you. So I think we're seeing an increase, you know, due in large part to education, health education and literacy skills, and health literacy is very low amongst the entire population. So having people understand that vaping can be associated with poor outcomes, people just don't understand that. And also from a public health standpoint, traditionally marijuana vaping haven't been included, you know, for any federal funding, et cetera. So there's not a lot of programs that are in place outside of Mary that are working to address this emerging public health issue.
Yeah, Ladarius, you spend a lot of time with SWAT. So tell me, what did you hear and learn about why students are vaping or young people are vaping?
Well, young people vape for numerous reasons, you know, outside of the common reason, which is the flavors and whatnot, the different commercials, the different celebrities, the different actors that make it seem so casual in these different films, even the video games and whatnot, or maybe their environment that they live in where this is a casual behavior. There's numerous reasons, especially like when we think about what happened 4 years ago. We were in COVID-19, and you know, young people got separated from their regular ordinary life, so they found some ways to cope. And because we were so limited in communication, there were not too many people around them to teach them the proper ways to cope with stress, because this was a stress that everybody had to learn to deal with. And so when we began to take a look at the Florida charts and the numbers of youth vaping and things and whatnot, it increased because of that. And so, you know, there's many different reasons why young people vape, and they vape now because they experience the sensation from vaping, right? And they began to say, hey, I'm having a nick buzz, which is meaning that they had some type of stimulation, some type of similar to feeling high from this nicotine going within their body. And now you have some people that's chasing a bigger thrill, they feel like, by pursuing vaping cannabis, vaping marijuana. So it kind of led as a gateway. The vaping led to a gateway of them vaping e-cigarettes and nicotine. Now they're moving over to marijuana. And so, and to add on with my colleague, Dr. Shamaria Robeson just said, it not only has, detrimental aspects as far as their physical health, but it alters their state of mind. So now it hurts their emotional, their mental, and psychological health, because now they're beginning to grow in an addiction. They don't realize it's an addiction, and they begin to reward themselves with this stimulant.
Yeah. So Shamiro, can you talk a little bit about the impact on brain health and vaping? Because I mean, we know that cannabis has the ability to impact the brains of young people. We've seen studies around that. So can you talk about that a little bit, please?
Yes. And one important point to make is what these teens are vaping is not medical marijuana. These teens are vaping street drugs. It is unlawful use of marijuana. So that's important because people don't know what's in the products. It is not well understood where these youth are getting these vaping products. It's not regulated. So we don't understand if there are other drugs associated with these vaping items. So THC is very addictive. Nicotine is very addictive. We understand to the brain, these are some highly addictive organic compounds. So when youth and other people vape marijuana, especially teenagers and their brains are in the developmental stage, it is harder for them to rationalize and have the other skills to quit. It's harder for them to concentrate in school. It's harder for them in large part to sleep. So there are many things that are going on related to a teen and their brain and vaping. And also, not well understanding. We don't understand if it's made at somebody's house, what other chemicals they're putting in it, which could cause long-term adverse bad effects for the brain. So it is important that teens know if somebody is giving them this, if it's related to peer pressure, that you don't know what kind of materials you're putting in your body and you don't know what it's doing to your brains because it's not tested. They're not testing these products to understand what's in it. It is not regulated what's going in their body. And there are no studies that show the long-term effects of vaping marijuana. So this is super important that you're pretty much just in a position where you're just being a lab rat. You're just being tested. You don't know what you're taking, and children often don't have the ability to understand this and can lead to mental health effects as well with the brain. A lot of youth who report vaping nicotine as well as vaping marijuana, they also report having mental health concerns, having mental health diagnosis, anxiety, depression. And it has been shown that these products can make these symptoms worse and can also make them dependent upon other drugs and other substances. So once you start vaping marijuana and these other things, it can lead these youth to other things. And for example, if somebody has laced this with other street drugs, they could become addicted to other drugs with them thinking that, hey, I'm only vaping marijuana, but there are other drugs like opioids and other things that people are mixing in these compounds, and it could lead to some serious addictions long term.
Well, I have two follow-up questions to what you just said. So the first one is you referenced the word lab rat. And we know that Ladarius has done a lot of award-winning campaigns, and one of them is don't be a lab rat. So let's segue into that, Ladarius, where you can share a little bit about your work on educating young youth about vaping. Talk about that, and then I want to follow up on a question about this is illegal. And where are they getting these devices from to vape marijuana or nicotine in general? So let's start with the Lab Rat campaign. If you could provide us an overview of that, and then we'll segue into how are young people getting these devices when it's illegal?
Right. So thank you so much, Heidi. So the Not a Lab Rat campaign was developed at the Florida Department of Health through the Bureau of Tobacco-Free Florida. I was very instrumental in helping our youth develop that, our statewide youth advocates, and working along our media vendor at the time. And we launched that campaign back in, I believe, the summer of 2018. And it was our first youth e-cigarette campaign. For years, the youth, the coordinators, the different people, the boots on the ground wanted to talk about vaping, because if we thought about it, Vaping boomed in 2011. Now we're coming out with a campaign in 2018. So it's a long awaited discussion. And we, we promote it as possible as a statewide leader. In that position, I made sure that our community advocates had different health messages, slogans. I tried to come up with as many promotional items as much as possible, help them plan and strategically think about the different community events and how they will reach different people and stakeholders on the ground. And one of the biggest joys that I experienced is that at the end of the year, I think it was May 2019, we had promoted that actual Now Elaborate campaign on World No Tobacco Day. And we received the attention of the World Health Organization, and they gave us a World Health Organization award that day. So that's international attention right there. We also
That's
received
amazing.
national. Yes, it was wonderful. You should have seen the youth when we shared that with them. They were jumping around, so happy. It led to them being able to hop on a global webinar with different youth from Ireland, Japan, India, and we're there having conversations with these young people about battling against vaping and tobacco products. It led to us having discussions with the Truth Initiative and the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, who everybody, they loved our campaign, and they kind of took some messages from it and repurposed it for their own work. But we were just so excited with what we were able to do there.
Yeah. So for everyone who is following us on social media, we actually added links to that campaign so that you all can see the content and the information that was shared. So thank you for sharing that. And I mentioned earlier that, young people are having access to this and it's illegal. So where are they getting these vaping tools to vape? Where are they getting them from? Because they can't just, they can't just walk into a store, right?
No, from friends, from family members, from people, dealers that are making these things and trying to get children hooked on them. From, other people like that. They may be taking devices that are traditionally, used to vape nicotine and putting other products in them, right? So they are getting these devices from different places, but oftentimes these devices are being given to youth in schools, after school events. So it is important to talk to your youth, to talk to community leaders, to talk to faith-based organizations, to let them know that this is a problem. It can be, right in the room with you and you not know it. It could look like a USB drive. It can look like a cup. They could be doing this in their room. You would never smell it, wouldn't know about it. They could be doing this at school, and it's so easy to hide. So it is important to bring this awareness and to talk to youth about saying no, and to talk to youth about getting help. Those are the things that's not well defined. We don't have a lot of campaigns that's focused on this. So it's important that we address this issue, because youth, they're continuously coming in to contact with people that are trying to get them to vape. It's seen as being cool in a lot of settings. A lot of peer pressure at this age, and youth, especially teens, are susceptible to a lot of peer pressure. So it is important that we bring, light to this situation, and we come up with ways to help families, to help children, not become addicted to marijuana and later lead to other gateway drugs.
Ladarius, you want to add to that?
Dr. Robeson did a wonderful job. It's hard to add on to that. What I also say is that, regulation is very important. And I think the Bureau of Tobacco-Free Florida does a very good job of going into different convenience stores, doing POS checking to make sure that young people are not purchasing these products from these stores, or these products are not in the lanes where young people can just grab them and walk out the store. I know that when I was in the position back at the Bureau of Tobacco-Free Florida, that was quite frequently a problem. There were some stores that actually sold some of these vaping products to young people. And, and that's why it became such a big deal about regulation and making sure that that's carried out as well. And I also want to just encourage that this is the proper time to bring back those those assemblies, those informationals, those trainings where
Mhm.
you ask people from the Florida Department of Health or professionals that might be in this avenue to come out and speak to young people about having informed decision making, help them make them
Mhm.
those informed decisions. Because I know that we're currently working on different, where I'm at now, we're currently working on different campaigns to help youth make informed decisions, like different life skills, refusal skills and whatnot. And if we don't have the information in front of these young people where they all can receive it, it's very easier for the other population to get to them. In the past, one thing I also want to add is that, in some of these rural communities, I think in the past, some of these big vaping or these tobacco companies or these other companies that make these products, they used to have parties in these different rural communities, and they would just hand out products to whomever they came across. So these are different things that we all need to be aware of, because I know it's easy for us to say, how did this happen? Where did this happen and whatnot? But it
Mhm.
happens in our everyday life right in front of us. And if we're not paying attention, that's how the enemy gets by.
I
Yeah.
would like to add that we're doing a pilot program actually. We started in Madison County using youth. So we are working with a community-based organization by the name of Boys to King. And this is a group that has more than 50 young men, teenagers to be exact, where we started with a pilot of training youth ambassadors at this community-based organization to just learn about marijuana and topics such as vaping. And we taught them different leadership skills so that they can go out and talk to other community members, their parents, and other youth about things like vaping, marijuana. What we found is they like to do this through situational skits where they could teach their peers how to say no. We started by really teaching them about medical marijuana, lawful use, what the Office of Medical Marijuana Use is, what's legal marijuana, what's not legal. We taught them about the effects of marijuana on the brain. We taught them about a lot of different things which have empowered them. And now we're in the phase of that youth project where they're going out and they're going to be training other youth. They're going to be training other family members. They're going to serve as voices of the community, because nothing for a community without a community. You know, these youth that are taking part in these leadership skills to spread the message about unlawful use of marijuana, what medical marijuana is, and a topic that's emerging like teens vaping, unlawful use is important. And they're creating different ways, and a curriculum have been created to train youth. But advisement of youth advising this curriculum is what we've been working on, and we are excited to continue to partner in different communities across the state of Florida. We've partnered with Jacksonville Boys and Girls Club. Madison Boys and Girls Club is looking at bringing this information in, additional products being developed so that we are equipped with the skills and tools necessary so that children aren't addicted to things like, vaping marijuana.
Yeah, and I think peer-to-peer engagement always works, and I want to applaud you for doing that. Ladarius, when we were prepping for the conversation, you mentioned that in some instances, people are actually making vapes in their homes and selling
Absolutely.
them. Can you please talk about that? My jaw dropped, if you remember, when we talked about it. So I definitely want to make sure that our viewers and listeners are aware of this.
There's a lot to be aware of when we're talking about these products, when we're talking about vaping products, and we're talking about, I know people get excited like it's gadgetry. We all like to be hip to the new items that are out there. We never want to be the person last in line and whatnot. But there's some things that we need to be very cautious of. When vaping products first came onto the scene, it was revealed that some people were just making these mixtures anywhere. They were making them in their bathtubs. They were making them in their kitchen sinks. And not to say what is the cleanliness of these different places, but also they weren't as regulated as they're getting now. And I don't believe they're still as heavily regulated right now, because honestly, some of these stores should not be open that sell these different CBDs, these vaping products, these marijuana products and whatnot. And the FDA is cracking down. But the thing that they started to notice is when people begin to go in and do the testing of the products, some products were mislabeled. Some products said 5% nicotine or 5% THC, but then when they ran the test, it was actually 8%. Some people said 8%, it was actually 12%. There was some people said 12%, it was actually 10%. And, you know, that just goes to show you that if without regulation, people are selling you anything. And then there's been cases where some people have lost their jobs because they thought that they were just getting some simple product, right? That just was what it was on the label. Then when they came to find out, when they took a lab test, a drug test, there were more other substances within it. So you run the risk of kind of Russian roulette when you buy these products. You don't know whether it's been mixed with bliss, mixed with ecstasy, made in the same area with ecstasy. You know, some companies tell you like, hey, this was made in the same building of. You do not see that on some of these labels, and you don't know what you're actually putting within your body. And then now all of a sudden you're having this bad reaction. You don't know specifically what's going wrong or what's going on, and now you're in a case where, hey, it's just best to stay away if you don't understand everything that's going on.
Yeah. Well, we kind of like laid out, you know, what is vaping? What, you know, how does it impact young people? And then, you know, what are the consequences of using it? So now I want to kind of shift and talk about, for family members, caregivers, teachers, church members who are engaged with our youth and young adults, what should they be looking for to kind of determine if, you know, that youth, that young person that they engage with may be using this? Can you give us some, what they should be looking for? And then let's segue into how do they help them if they find out they are vaping? Right.
I've been working with youth for probably a little over 12 years now. Behaviors will change. Whenever they get a new video game, let's say they get a new PS5, you will see them walking around the house less, right? They'll be glued to that PS5. So now when it comes in terms of vaping products or these other products that we're talking about, you'll notice mood swings, certain smells. Why are you always disappearing? You know, look at their facial expressions. Skin will start to look different. Lips might start looking different. Eyes might start looking different. Sleep patterns might change or whatnot. Friend groups might change, whatnot. How they respond to normal situations that you've had with them previously, they might respond a little bit differently. So these are different things you have to look for. One thing that I'm blessed with is I had a mother that stayed on top of me. So I couldn't hide nothing from my mother. She used to tape my car and drive it around and tell me I need to clean it out or whatnot. You know, she used to come in my room and be nosy. And so now, you know, it's time to get back to that and staying informed and, you know, reading up on information and just making sure that, you know, we continue to remain a community as parents. Like, you know, hey, have you noticed anything different? You know, how are the children doing? Connecting, because it's those same type of relationships that have helped us in the past, and they can help us right now make sure that our young people get where they need to be at.
Dr. Robertson, you want to add to that?
I agree, and I think when you're looking, so my first career, I was a middle school teacher, so I think having those personal relationships. Of course, you're teaching about work, but understanding children, listening when they're saying, you know, I'm down, I'm sad, like kids will often tell you how they feel, making sure that you are watchful around kids that are like trying to be, you know, discreet with their book bag. Don't look in here. You know, kids will often, if they have something that they shouldn't have, when you come around, even if you're not looking in that item, that pencil case, they'll get really protective, right? They'll get really protective of their phones. They'll have a lot of passcodes on their phones. They won't want you, like, you know, my colleague Ladarius said, they don't want you to go in their rooms, right? And just pay attention to items that, you know, school items that don't look like the normal items that you purchase. So if they're a USB looking like drives, and kids don't use that a lot anymore, they have, you know, the storage on Teams, etc. So they're walking around and they have a lot of USB drives. That's something that a vape device could look like, right? If they wear, and a lot of youth do, they wear a lot of hoodies. So there are devices that go around your neck, kind of hide like it's a keychain, and kids have that. So I think being intentionally inquisitive about what's going on with them when they walk through the door. Hey, you know, let me help you out. Let me help you clean your book bag. Let's reset, you know, let's take everything out and let's reorganize this Thanksgiving break coming up. let's go ahead and hit a reset on school supplies and let me help you. I just want to be a part. We can talk while we do it. So, making sure that they know you're intentionally going through their things. We check with your teacher, how are you doing? Is everything okay? Like, even if a child is a straight A student, that's what a lot of people think. Oh, if they make good grades, this couldn't happen to them. That's not necessarily true. Right. Kids can make good grades and they can still be addicted to substances. They could still be hiding things. So it's important to be vigilant. But it's also important to know that even if you find this, even if you are a youth leader and you find out that children are vaping, talking to them to understand that there's still hope for you. This is not the end of life. This doesn't mean that you're a bad person, but our response will sometimes dictate if you stop this or if they continue what could be a lifelong habit, right? So being understanding to say you're not the only child. You're not alone in this. There are ways that we can help you. Talking to your pediatrician, their healthcare provider, to say, I found that, my child is vaping marijuana. I don't know what's in this. I want to work with you to make sure that my child hasn't come in contact with other types of drugs that they may be addicted to, that may require a prescription, getting that child in the doctor to get their blood work done so that they can actually help the child is important. And that might, lead to a referral to mental health counseling, other things that can help a child. And say, for example, your child don't have a pediatrician. There are community health centers that you can get help with your children if they're vaping, right? There are strategies that you can use to help talk to other youth. And I think encouraging people to tell their story. So when youth have been called and have been found in situations where they're vaping, using other youth to say, hey, this was once me. You can stop. You can do this. Instead of vaping, try working out. Instead of vaping, try cooking. Instead of, using this as a mental health counselor, there are youth texting lines. There are virtual free options for mental health for kids. Bringing all of these resources to you to let them know that, hey, the world is here for you. There's a better option. You don't have to risk your life, right? Back prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, there was something that was called vaping. People often forgot, and is vaping associated pulmonary illnesses. And this is where, people, including teens, ended up in the hospital. And some actually, sadly to say that some actually died from vaping products. They didn't know what was in it. So this led to something that was called popcorn lung, etc. And a lot of ended up dead based on an unknown vaping product with all types of chemicals. And, this can be any youth at any point in time in Florida. If they vape a product that somebody make in their house that have a harmful chemical in it and they pass this out, more than 100 of these devices, we could be looking at children actually dying from this. So this is an important issue, a very important issue.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to bring up a graphic that Ladarius gave us so that our viewers can see how people are hiding their vaping devices. So Ladarius, you want to walk us through what we're looking at here?
Yes, ma'am. So one of the things that I began to witness when I was at the Florida Department of Health at the Bureau of Tobacco-Free Florida, I think it was Volusia County, the young people kept getting very slick about hiding these products right in plain sight. And it was not really the young people, it was really the companies. They kept advertising these products so much that the local boots on the ground, the local coordinators, the local tobacco program kept providing this information to the state office. And we began to start to see, like, they're making vaping products that look like water bottles. Take a look at the image in the middle. Look exactly like water bottles. They're making vaping hoodies now. They're making vaping products that look exactly like their normal everyday items. So I think when we were doing the technical preparation for this conversation, you had said something about, well, if teacher, you know, a student is vaping in the classroom, wouldn't a teacher be able to easily detect it? And I
Right.
responded back to you and I told you, like, no, it's not as easy anymore, because if I have that water bottle, as soon as you turn your back and I vape, you might be able to smell the odor, but you don't know where it's coming from because everybody has a water bottle. If I have
Yeah.
on a hoodie, especially right now, we're looking at 60, 40-degree weather, 50-degree weather right now, and you turn
Mhm.
around, you don't know who's vaping because we all have on hoodies. So it's not just the product we have to be scared of now. It's the product design, the disguises that they're doing right now. So, like, you know, it's very important that teachers are informed of these products being out there on the market, and parents, superintendents, school boards, and whatnot. And you know, we all need to get this type of training where we can see this information and know it ahead of time.
Yeah.
School nurses as
Go ahead.
well. So, you know, for example, a lot of youth in schools, they really trust school nurses. So they
Hmm.
trust them. They tell them a lot about their health, and they tell them a lot about habits, and, you know, making sure school nurses are trained, making sure guidance counselors, teachers, assistants, principals, after school programs, right? Children, they use a lot of products that they shouldn't when they're all in a big gang. So, for example, if they're in hallways and there's a lot of people and somebody vaping, there's vapor that come up, people won't be able to easily identify who did it, right? When kids are at games after school, basketball games, football games, where there may not be as many adults or supervision, they do these types of activities, right?
Mhm.
When they're walking home from school, etc. This is an opportunity. So really being open and transparent and teaching people where to look for these types of behaviors is
Mhm.
very important, and making sure, you know, that if they smell it, to say something, like if they smell different odors, fruity flavors, for
Yeah.
example, and they don't know where it's coming from. It's not that anybody's spraying aerosol that smell like a cherry or smell like orange. These people are very creative. Fruit Loops, they create a lot of products that are very children specific. Like,
Yeah.
it is very intentional for people to pick flavors and kinds that kids might like, colors that kids like, so that they're more drawn to things like vaping, marijuana.
Yeah.
And
Well, we just
Heidi,
oh, go ahead,
if I
Ladarius.
may hop in, I'm glad Dr. Roberson said aerosol, because what we have to remember is this is not water that they're vaping. This is an aerosol, essentially, because it's a mixture, it's a cocktail of different chemicals involved. The one chemical that Dr. Roberson was talking about earlier that led to that wheezing, that popcorn lung, is propylene glycol.
Mhm.
So people need to take a look at these different chemicals on the back. Don't just take a look at the level of THC, the level of nicotine. That's just a sugar to a soda. There's other chemicals that are involved that create the soda that you're ingesting. So in this case, there's different things involved that's creating the product that are unhealthy to our bodies and unhealthy to our lungs. And these young people need to know that.
Yeah, we actually got a question, and I think we answered it from a Melissa on who's watching us on YouTube, and I believe we answered her question. But I want to put this up where she said, "How can we successfully teach adolescents about cannabis dangers and benefits?" So I want to have you all, if you all want to kind of circle back on anything that you said earlier, just to answer her specific question, and then we're going to wrap up with you all giving your closing comments on this really engaging conversation in this particular topic. So, look, Ladarius, do you want to kind of
Uh,
provide any kind of context for Melissa?
Yes, I'll take a stab at it. First, we have to make sure that when we educate these young people, we have to reach them in a place where a lot of them are. So it might have to be schools or community events, you know. Um, and the biggest thing that I want to say is we have to distinguish the difference between cannabis and these vaping products.
Right.
And then let's talk about the different potential dangers of both, and that there is potential benefits, what they are. Um, so I'm not one to discuss that, but you know, we have to make sure that we follow these different parameters, because whenever we're introducing an idea to young people or discussing an idea with young people, we don't want to give them the wrong impression that we're giving them permission to engage in certain behaviors and activities.
Yeah, thank you for that. That was really well said. Dr. Robertson, can you give us some closing thoughts on what our listeners and viewers need to know, like final thoughts on this topic, teens, youth, vaping, and marijuana?
I just think it's important for us to know that this is an ever-changing topic, and we have to stay vigilant and watching the products so that we can provide prevention messages.
Okay. And Ladarius, any closing thoughts that you want to share?
Right. I had a professor, his name is Dr. Axelrad. He used to tell me, Ladarius, stay curious. So I know we can always say stay informed. You know, that might not be enough. Stay curious. If we stay curious, we'll become as informed as possible and learn the information that we need to learn. Continue to just try to learn the information, connect with other people, and everything will fall in line.
Yeah, wise words. Well, Dr. Roberson and Ladarius, thank you for being guests on this Conversations on Cannabis virtual forum brought to you by the Medical Marijuana Education and Research Initiative at Florida A&M University. Thank you to everyone watching this program. Tell us what you think about this forum by completing the survey. Post it in the comment boxes on YouTube and Facebook after this live program. If you complete the survey, your name will be entered into a drawing on December 5th, 2024, to win a $100 gift card provided by one of Mary's partners. We also want to encourage you to go to the Florida Department of Health Office of Medical Marijuana Use website to learn how to obtain a legal medical marijuana card in the state of Florida. We also encourage you to go to Florida A&M University's Mary website to learn more about this initiative, its educational programs, and additional information about medical and illegal cannabis use in the state of Florida. Thanks, everyone.